Oh, I bet you made a fortune off this. Quarter.
Well, somebody did. Sure wasn't me.
Hello, welcome to Kaiju Review, where today we'll be covering Tremors 2 Aftershocks.
Why do we gotta cover a second movie about giant worms? Wasn't the first movie enough?
Well, maybe if you hadn't picked it for us to review, we wouldn't be in this situation.
Shut up.
Near an oil field in Chiapas, Mexico, a man is shimmying along a pipe trying to escape something underground. He jumps from barrel to barrel trying to get to his truck, but ends up knocked to the ground and gets grabbed by a graboid.
Back in Perfection, Earl Bassett is trying to control an ostrich which gets the better of him. He is soon visited by a cab carrying Carlos Ortega, a representative of an oil field in Mexico who tries to hire Earl to deal with a graboid problem. Ortega's cab driver, Grady Hoover, tries to convince Earl to take the job, and Earl agrees to let Grady tag along as bait.
After Earl and Grady drive down to Sonora, Mexico, Ortega introduces the mechanic, Pedro, and reveals that the company will pay them double if they can capture one of the graboids alive.
Good luck with that one, guys.
They then meet Kate Riley, a geologist who works for Ortega's company. Kate introduces the duo to her assistant, Julio.
That night, Earl visits Kate in her office, and the two check each other out while setting up a map of the region.
That's funny.
Grady brings a bunch of chains to make noise to attract the graboids. After realizing he interrupted them, he goes out to attach the chain to the truck. Julio sets up the monitor to track the graboids in the desert and wonders why only those two are going out. Grady reveals that they're the bait for the graboids.
The next morning, Earl and Grady drive out to where the graboids were active. Earl has Grady drive while he checks the monitor for graboids, and when he spots one approaching, they stop the truck. They then use remote-controlled cars rigged with explosives to blow up several of the graboids. While they take a break, a graboid steals their radio.
What a jerk.
Yeah, we were listening to that.
The next day, while discussing how much they earn with each kill, Grady reveals his desire to open a theme park. Unfortunately, the big graboid that ate their radio showed up and grabbed Grady's chain and starts dragging the truck across the plain. The graboid stops just short of a cliff, veering off another direction. The graboid dives under a rock, breaking the chain and freeing the truck.
That was one heck of a close one there.
After spotting a horde of graboids heading their way, the pair drives back to the base camp. Earl decides to call Bert Gummer, who mentions that he and his wife are having issues.
Translation? They couldn't afford to get Reba back.
Earl tells Bert about the graboid problem. While looking at a fossil, Kate finds something that indicates that the graboids have been around since before even the dinosaurs. Disruptions in the ground are detected, but Earl realizes it's just Bert showing up.
Yep, there's that crazy fool.
And we love him just the way he is.
Bert shows off the tools he brought with him to deal with the graboids. Grady accidentally brings up Bert's wife, and Bert confides in Earl that he was going a bit nuts just sitting at home, and Heather did leave him. Bert shows them a special gun for hunting graboids.
They head out to hunt for graboids. Bert is willing to share his MREs, meals ready to eat, and Earl accidentally eats toilet paper. Bert uses the remote control car tactic, and it ends up being a bit excessive. Grady spots something moving away from them, and he and Earl follow, though Earl is worried that the graboids are getting smarter, like back in Perfection. As it turns out, they are.
With the truck busted, Grady has an idea and leads Earl to the graboid. Turns out the graboid isn't hungry. Grady realizes they caught a live graboid.
We got one!
But with the truck busted, they can't move it, so they have to call Kate to give them a lift.
That night, Bert calls in to compare scores, and Grady tells them they caught a live one. Suddenly, they hear an odd noise coming from the graboid. Turns out the graboid died, and something ate its way out of the creature. Earl tries to radio Kate, but the line is dead, and they hear the sound of another dying graboid. They spot Pedro's truck, but notice him stopping quite a ways away from them.
When Pedro doesn't start moving again, Grady convinces Earl to trek across the plain to Pedro's truck. They find Pedro's truck in terrible shape. Then they find, well, what's left of Pedro.
Pedro! He was my favorite character!
Earl spots a radio tower and then they head there. After several hours, Bert remains unable to connect to anyone, so he heads back to base. He reveals to his camera that he was tracking a graboid, but it's disappeared without a trace.
Earl and Grady find the radio tower trashed, and Earl reiterates that graboids get smarter. They find a vehicle and decide to hotwire it, but hear something nearby. They then find a new creature called a Shrieker, which came from the dead graboid. They manage to kill the thing pretty easily and learn that it doesn't have eyes. They soon learn that there are more than one Shrieker and hightail it. Bert also encounters the creatures.
It seems like these things are everywhere.
Kate tries to call Earl over the radio, and Julio accidentally gives her a scare. Just as he's about to check out the radio tower, he's attacked by a Shrieker, while Kate is powerless to help. Earl and Grady kill the thing off screen, inform Kate that Pedro is dead. Just as the three are about to leave, they discover a Shrieker has eaten the truck's engine and kill it. They try to figure out how many Shriekers there are, which is quite a few.
There may be a lot of them, but they can kill them. So that's good.
Then Bert shows up, revealing that they had fewer of the creatures to deal with. Bert is upset that no one told them about the Shriekers, but Earl and Grady explain the situation. Bert then tells how he took out a few of them before fleeing, revealing that he's now out of ammo. Grady is hopeful that most of the Shriekers are dead, but Kate lets slip her interest in studying them. Turns out Bert did manage to stun one of them, so Kate has her chance. They drive the captured Shrieker into Kate's office, but unbeknownst to them, a stunned Shrieker hitched a ride under Bert's truck and grabs one of the MREs for a meal.
After some tests, the humans discover several things. The Shriekers can sense heat to find food. Their screams emits the heat that allows them to communicate with other Shriekers, and they find edible food by tasting around with their tongues.
Science!
They think they fed the Shrieker too much, but then births a child orally, revealing that they are hermaphrodites that they reproduce after consuming enough food.
Disgusting science!
Kate is excited about the things she's learning about the Shriekers when one bursts through a window. Earl fights it off and discovers the Shriekers feeding off of Bert's MREs. They flee the building and head for what turns out to be an unfinished building.
To be fair, Kate tried to warn them about that.
Bert checks on the Shriekers and notices that they halted their pursuit.
Using doors, the group sneaks past the Shriekers. Kate reveals that there's a car left that they might be able to use to escape. Just when they think they're home free, a Shrieker appears before them. Bert blows the out of the Shrieker, ends up hitting the vehicle in the process.
As they head towards the cantina, a swarm of Shriekers rushes them. Earl and Kate make it to the cantina, while Grady climbs a nearby tower and Bert hides in the shovel of a construction vehicle. Kate stabs the Shrieker's tongue with a broken bottle, and Earl uses a coverall drenched in hot water to distract the creatures while they make their way to Grady's tower.
Bert is still upset that no one told him about the Shriekers, and this results in everyone arguing with each other. Kate gets them to calm down as she realizes that since they haven't been able to connect to anyone, someone was bound to show up to find out what happened with them. As they talk, Earl realizes a pen-up he has at home, in fact, is Kate.
He's in love with a Playboy playmate. But who hasn't been?
Grady informs the couple that the Shriekers are starting to climb each other to get at them. Bert attracts the attention of the Shriekers, leading them into a garage and locking them in. Unfortunately, the garage contains sweets and rice flour, which the Shriekers quickly eat up.
Do these things ever get full?
Yes, and then they give birth.
Oh, right.
Earl is sprayed down with a fire extinguisher so he can make his way to Bert's truck, which contains explosives. Earl sneaks past the Shriekers but slowly warms up as he moves, attracting attention. Earl managed to activate one of the bombs and rejoins the others. He tells everyone to run. When Bert learns that Earl intended to blow up his truck, he's a bit upset. Everyone ducks for cover as the bomb in Bert's truck explodes, killing the Shriekers.
That was cool.
While the group is pelted with debris and Shrieker corpses, they survive. In the aftermath, Earl decides to stick around and he and Kelly hook up. Grady reminds Earl that the company owes them for all the dead graboids, and everyone walks off as the credits roll.
This is a great entry in the Tremors series.
Yeah, which is kind of odd considering that this was a straight-to-video release.
I like the fact the Shriekers are introduced.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do with giant worms, so I'm glad that they chose to evolve them in this movie.
Still afraid of worms?
If worms do this, then absolutely.
For Kaiju Review, I am Tank.
And I'm Protomet.
See ya!